Greetings, R. Frederick Riddle here with another episode of Christian News and Views. This is episode 26, 120. Today is Monday, and we're going to call it 250. And I came across an article that I kind of found very interesting, and especially in the light of our celebration, and it's coming up real soon. So I thought I'd report on it. It's called Rival Friends. Goes like this: like Americans today, the people living in the United States in 1826 were preparing to celebrate a milestone for their country. July 4th of that year marked the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. As what was known as a jubilee of American independence approached, Americans realized that the founding generation was dying off. They wanted to take advantage of the founders' insight while they still could. This meant soliciting memories and advice from the signers of the Declaration, only three of whom were still alive. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams were the men most closely associated with the independence movement, yet they both lay dying and both declined invitations to attend the festivities planned for July 4th. But they were able to answer letters from younger men interested in their perspective on the revolution and subsequent history they had helped shape. As this is authors talking, as an Adams scholar and someone interested in how he is remembered, I have studied with interest his response to the questions posed to him. He also wrote a good deal about the revolution to his friend and one-time rival, Jefferson. These two men, who had worked well together during the American Revolution, could not have been more different. Both had thought long and hard about what the American Revolution meant to them. They did not always agree. If Americans today are looking for a unified vision of their country in their own 250th celebrations, they will not find it with Adams or Jefferson. After the Revolutionary War, Adams and Jefferson became political rivals. They disagreed about how powerful the federal government should be and on foreign policy at a time when England and France once again were at war. And they were presenting challenges to the new country. Jefferson founded the Democratic Republican Party to counter the influence of Alexander Hamilton's Federalist Party. While Adams never formally aligned with the Federalists, he agreed with many of their policies, especially on foreign policy. As a result, the friendship between Adams and Jefferson unraveled. For years, they did not speak or correspond until a mutual friend, Benjamin Rush, encouraged the reconciliation. On New Year's Day, 1812, Adams was the first to reach out. He used the excuse of sending to Jefferson a pamphlet written by his son John Quincy, saying that it was from one who was honored in his youth with some of your attention and much of your kindness. Adams continued in casual language to tell Jefferson about the family and wished him a happy new year. Jefferson responded warmly, telling Adams, "A letter from you calls up recollections very dear to my mind." From that time on, the two wrote to each other on a regular basis, discussing every topic imaginable, from agriculture to religion. Yet it was clear that their past rift was on Adams' mind when he wrote, "You and I ought not to die before we have explained ourselves to each other." In the process, they revisited the days when they worked together to form a new nation. As they reflected on the meaning of the United States' birth, they agreed that writing a history of the American Revolution was next to impossible. Adams wrote to Jefferson, "Who shall write the history of the American Revolution? Who can write it? Who will ever be able to write it?" The problem, as Adams saw it, was that so much was done in secret. Nobody recorded the debates and speeches of the Continental Congress, the governing body during the Revolution. Therefore, how could a true history ever exist? Jefferson agreed. After restating Adams' question about who could write a true history, Jefferson's response was, "Nobody except merely its external facts." On this, they could agree. On some of the specifics, they did not. fundamental difference. In old age, Adams remembered vividly how he convinced Jefferson to write the Declaration of Independence. One historian has argued that Adams' memory seems a bit too clear and suggested that he was working to elevate himself in the process of telling the story by claiming that he alone persuaded a reluctant Jefferson to take on the task. However, scholars still accept Adams' version of this event. Jefferson remembered the incident differently, stating that he was urged by the entire committee charged with producing the Declaration, but just Adams to take on the not just Adams to take on the task, and that he was happy to comply. More important than the details was the ultimate interpretation by these two men of what they had accomplished 50 years before. What their letters written after the Jubilee Committee's invitation reveal is a fundamental difference in their attitudes about the human spirit. Adams wrote that he appreciated the invitation and was sorry to decline. He called the birth of the U.S. a memorable epoch in the annals of the human race. Yet he also demonstrated his realistic view of human beings when he wrote that the independence movement would form the brightest or the blackest page according to the use or abuse of those political institutions by which they shall be shaped by the human mind. Adams understood that people interpret history according to their own circumstances. He was a realist who could not bring himself to accept a fundamentally optimistic view that humanity was always moving toward liberty. Jefferson, on the other hand, was hopeful about the revolution's impact on the world. He believed that the Declaration would be the signal of arousing men to burst their chains. The entire letter to the Jubilee Committee offered an optimistic view of the future in which the human race was always progressing toward freedom. When Adams and Jefferson died on July 4th, 1826, their lives took on new meaning. In eulogizing them, House member Daniel Webster told the American public, "They are no more. They are dead. But how little is there of the great and good which can die? To their country they yet live, and live forever." Now, 200 years later, Americans still look to these founding fathers for inspiration. However, what Adams and Jefferson demonstrate is not unity. Instead, they exemplify this capacity for people to disagree and yet work for a common good. And so I'm going to stop it there. That was the end of the article anyhow. And I just want to point that there, the concluding statement there, I kind of agree with. They disagreed, but their memory lives on. And we still look back at them and with high respect. They did show they could disagree on matters and still work together. I can remember as a child growing up that Democrats and Republicans disagreed on a number of things, but they still worked together. That's not really true today. Something happened along the way. I think that Adams is a little bit more wise in his look at the human race. Jefferson was kind of idealistic. You might even say today, if he was alive today, he might fit more in with the liberal, although I think he'd be shocked by some of the things they do. But he kind of was thinking that the human race is getting better. And he might have been of the idea that we are in working towards more towards the millennium, that maybe we'd bring in the millennium ourselves. I don't know if he's ever said that, but he was more to the left than most of us. And so there is, so I'd have to side on with Adams there a little bit. But Jefferson had some good points too. And the thing is that these men came together and formed, along with a whole lot of others, and they formed a constitution. Now, I like the term living constitution, but not necessarily the way some people use it. Some people use the term living constitution means that you can change its meaning over time. No, that is not a living constitution. That's a figment of one's imagination. a living constitution to me, and it may not find it. I don't know if there's any out there, any legalistic explanation of that view or not. But I'm just thinking about it right now. I think of the Constitution as living, but I think of it, I don't apply it the way a lot of people do. To me, the whole idea is by living is that people of different views can come together and craft legislation that will benefit the majority, if not all, the majority of our people. And it wasn't so long ago we could still do that. That's called statesmanship. There's few statesmen around today. And so you're either in one camp or another. You might disagree with me. I think that the Democrats have done a grave injustice to America and to that concept. The idea of working together, to them, it was not an idea that they wanted to work together. It was they wanted to achieve an agenda, and they used that method to do so. But they were only compromising on a small degree. As my life has progressed, I've seen that ability to compromise shrink. And then I saw personal attacks start showing up. Mostly at first they were, as I recall it, were the Democrats. They would sow this. I still remember to this day they were talking about Social Security, and they pointed a finger at the Republicans, and it was a funny ad, but it showed a man pushing a woman over in a wheelchair over a cliff. There's nothing funny about that, but just the way they structured it and the whole thing. But the thing was that their presentation of the Republicans was so off. I think that might have turned a lot of people against them right there. But it's gotten worse. And now the Republicans picked it up too. And so you have both parties slinging mud at one another and no longer cooperating, no longer working together. No, that's not always true. There are Republicans and there are Democrats who will work together for the common good. That has been a diminishing situation. And so that, like I said, I kind of favor Adams look at it a little bit better than Jefferson's. But they both came up with some good ideas. They both represented some truth about our country. So when you want to know the truth, you don't just look at one side or the other, you look at the whole thing, because it took a group of men working together for the common good. And there were like, what was that, 56? There were all these different men working together. They had different backgrounds. They came from different families, different education, different experiences. They came together and formed a document, wrote a document that did revolutionize not only America, it revolutionized the world. Now, many people try to copy us. They always have to tinker with it. And so they don't come up with our system, which I think is still the best system there is. We are a republic. We are actually a representative democracy is what we are. And not a democracy. Democracy is confusion. We are a representative democracy. You take the representative part out of it, and you got problems. Well, I might revisit this subject, not necessarily this article, but the whole idea as we draw closer to July 4th. 250 years, folks. That's not a long time in history, but it is a landmark. In 250 years, our country will have existed, and it's still a shining beacon, even though that's somewhat tarnished. It's still a beacon that people see, and it draws millions of people to its shores. Well, you have a great day, and I hope that this has been educational, helpful, inspirational, whatever. And I do want to remind you that this is sponsored by T&R Independent Books, a Christian indie publisher. If you don't know how to write, we have a writing course, BAT, Basic Authors Training. We also have, if you do know how to write, we have a ministry publishing. If you're a Christian and you want to learn to write, or you're a Christian and you have written or looking for a publisher, we are interested in you. simply go to trbookservices.com/shop, and that will take you right to our store. Go to the writing department and select the one service you're interested in, and then fill out and send in the application. There's more information there, by the way, as to what all it involves. And you can ask questions, and we will answer them. You have a great day. I hope to see you in the next episode.